Hi, Claude. Welcome to Coming and Going, Cross-Cultural Conversations. Happy to have you
Oh,
on the show.
yeah, thanks for having me. It's truly an honor to be invited.
Can you just tell the audience a little bit about your background and your immigrant story?
Yeah, sure. I was born and raised originally in Kansas City, Missouri, but I have lived throughout the world, and uh, uh, a significant portion, both in terms of impact on my life and my global experience, was spending roughly 3 years living in Shanghai.
Wow, that's amazing. Had you visited China before that? What prompted you to move to Shanghai?
No, I had not visited Shanghai or any parts of Eastern Asia before that time. And what inspired me to go was two parts. I had finished my MBA program, and at the time, all the professors and stuff was talking about is the impact of the Chinese markets on in terms of international business, and then also the fact that my that at that time my future and current wife was also from the Shanghai area in the neighboring town called Hangzhou,
Oh,
and so
wow.
the chance to visit her and see if things would work out between us, as well as gaining Chinese business experience, was were my two main motivations for going out there.
Wow, that's amazing. And congrats on succeeding and ending up with your wife.
Thanks. I definitely succeeded despite myself. Definitely.
Hey, I mean, you're still together, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, that's amazing. I can't imagine moving somewhere without visiting first. What was your initial impression of China? What was the most shocking to you?
Well, I guess the my initial impressions and the most shocking was experiencing that type of energy. I guess I never experienced that type of or been in a city or a town with that type of energy where you can really feel the vibrancy both in the business and everyday walk of life world. And I had never experienced that before, despite the various areas of the world I had lived in before moving to Shanghai. And I guess the closest in terms of feeling that energy and that vibe, just walking down the streets and stuff like that. I guess the closest that I've experienced to that would have been the time where I lived in New York City for roughly about a year. But still, that Shanghai was like a at least like a three times multiple of that type of energy that I experienced in New York.
By energy, do you mean like, I guess, just the hustle and the bustle, the noise? What sorts of energy?
Well, I'd say it's there's like feeling like the hustle and bustle. I felt like, I mean, I guess this was me still having like my MBA brain on at the time and stuff like that. But like I felt like that there were literally like deals being done and closed with within like a what like a 30-foot radius of any street that I was walking on in Shanghai.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I felt like there were like deals being done and things progress being made and things of that sort.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So speaking of that hustle and the bustle and you having your MBA brain on, as I understand, you moved without a job lined up, and your wife didn't want you to teach English as a profession. So how did you go about like the move and like getting your visa ready and actually trying to look for a job?
Well, I mean, I would definitely say it's with a bit of a stroke of luck, actually, at like each step of the process. And I guess about like my first weekend, I knew that I wanted to stick around to see how things would work out with me and her, but then also to actually like live and work. I wanted to experience that energy for a while. So I established that like after week one of me first landing there and stuff. And so once I established that, then I figured that, and then I was also working against like a 30-day tourist visa
Oh
as well.
wow.
And so like after week one, I was like, okay, I definitely want to stick around here. And so at the time, the easiest job, even though it was, uh, it was against the ideal situation, was getting a teaching English job. And so my wife like looked up some schools and stuff like that, made a couple of phone calls, and just so happened that she reached one of the regional bigwigs, I guess, of one of the teaching English school franchises there, and wound up meeting with him, I guess, like the next day or so,
Oh
and
wow,
then
fast.
he was on board with me teaching, yeah, really fast. And I just like showed him my passport and the proof that I had my degrees and stuff, and then just I started roughly perhaps like a week and a half later.
Wow. So did he do all of the visa stuff for you to convert you from a tourist visa then?
Well, he had a staff that worked on that, and that in and of itself was a bit of a adventurous, risk taking process of sort. But at
How
the end,
so?
well, I mean, like I said, we were working against like that 30-day tourist visa, but yet he had me go ahead and start working and stuff like that, and then getting towards like the end of that 30 days, it's just like, hey, I mean, we're getting close here where I could be here like illegally and stuff. What are we going to do? And then I guess like on the like I guess roughly like 2 days before my visa expired, then then it wound up getting all the paperwork together and stuff, and then I had to fly down to Hong Kong to that local consulate or to that local embassy office
Hmm.
to get the extensions and stuff that I needed. And unfortunately it kind of came down to like a last minute, but
Oh
luckily it
my gosh.
really pulled through.
I'm glad it worked out for you. It sounds very nerve-wracking. So out of
But
curiosity, once you got that visa, like did you have a like local ID or like what did that look like?
yeah, yes, you do. You do have like a another page wide stamp on on my passport and stuff with some documentation, a couple pages of documentation with that as well.
Okay, so once you got that and you started teaching English,
Mhm.
um, how did you transition then from teaching English into what you eventually did in China?
Yeah, well, luckily I went to a few of the American Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai events and stuff, and luckily from there I was given like a short term consulting job with the American Chamber of Commerce
Oh, wow.
to establish a video department for them to be able to video and record some of the events that they were having, and then also to refurbish their environmental committee, because at the time they did not have an active environmental committee going. But at the same time, there is a increasing need for environmental rehabilitation technology and stuff like that in the Shanghai area. I don't know if you're aware of like the pollution challenges that are happening that were happening at the time, still are, but I think to a lesser degree.
I was
And
not.
in like the bigger cities like Shanghai and Beijing and stuff like that. But uh, but there was like a call for American companies to be able to get into that market, and so with using the environmental committee, I helped to refurbish that, and then also established a couple like annual environmental pop-up fairs and stuff for American companies to showcase their environmental rehabilitation solutions to the Chinese market. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah, and then it was during that time where I met another American that was doing a business development for a Chinese trading company, and during that time while building a relationship with him, he was telling me that company had a need for wanting to expand into the sub-Saharan African markets, and they needed somebody with that type of experience. And so after meeting with him and the CEO, they basically gave me an offer that I couldn't refuse, and so then I wound up taking that one for full time for like the next roughly 3 years.
Wow, sounds like everything kind of lined up for you towards the end, which I'm glad to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah. In hindsight, it definitely looked like that, but at the time, just just trying just trying to see where I could fit in, I guess.
Can you speak a little bit to what the differences in working in the US versus working in China? Like, well, you were working globally, but was the work culture different from what you were experienced in?
Mm, well, I would say generally speaking, I would say that there's a that the biggest difference I saw was like a more of a dedication to the company and to performing excellent in the roles. That seemed to be a bit more profound in with the Chinese companies that I was working with compared to working in a corporation here in the United States, where it seems like, and I guess the best way to put it is like it seems like the motivation in terms of like the United States corporations and stuff like that is to do to achieve the minimum amount of requirements in the least amount of time. Whereas in the Chinese corporate environment that I experienced, it really seemed like the old school mentality of working in a corporation where they wanted to do the best that they possibly could,
Mm.
even if that was like way above uh, achieving the minimal requirements for a position.
So they held themselves to a higher standard.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it.
So I've heard a lot about working in China. I haven't actually worked in China, but it's a lot about like guanxi, like your a lot about your relationships with each other. Did you experience that, and how did you navigate that?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely about that, and in terms of like the guangxi and stuff like that, and and I guess the shortest way about doing that is just being genuinely curious in the individuals that and counterparts that I was working with, and what that consisted of sometimes was just like taking extra time to have tea or to hang out outside of work hours or like after work or so with the individuals and to get to know them a bit more or actually like sharing having or sharing lunch
Hmm.
with them as well, and like those type of things and getting to know the individuals and their motivations would play like a significant role in be it for me at least. And outside of the fact that I guess I was the odd foreigner that they African American that they'd only seen on movies and stuff and hadn't necessarily seen in person. And I guess mixing all that together allowed me to build, I guess, my guangxi.
Can you talk a little bit more about being an African American in China? What was, I mean, yeah, I feel like there aren't a lot in China, right? Were you able to find a community, build a community with that? Were you stared at? What was it like?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely all of the above, and it kind of caught me by surprise because during that first month, it was the time we by the time we got there, it was like I guess during the one of the holidays, I guess the fall festival or the fall holiday, and
Was it like mid-autumn,
yeah,
with the mooncakes?
yeah, with the mooncakes, yeah, definitely, which is coming up actually.
Yes.
You mentioned that, yeah, thanks for reminding me, but but yeah, it was during that time, and I guess that was like roughly like my second week in China,
Uh-huh.
and so like my wife took me to meet up with her friends in Hangzhou, and we went around to that big man-made lake and stuff like that, and it was just flooded with tourists at the time because of that holiday. And I noticed, and I guess the reason why I'm going with that is because like a lot of times like people would ask to like take pictures of me as if I was like a star or something like that, and then I'm just like, and I would tell them in like basic English that I'm just I'm not a star or anything like that, but they didn't care, and it's like okay, whatever. And
So
then I
you
see
were like the local celebrity walking around?
yeah, I see people like trying to like photobomb me, I guess, and so I'm like, okay, whatever.
Okay, so then were there any times where you experienced like prejudice for that, or was it more like they just treated you like a celebrity?
Mm, I mean, in terms of prejudice, I mean, I would say no to that. I would say no to that. I mean, I didn't. The racism I've experienced here in the States uh, was far exceeds anything that I had
Oh
any
wow.
challenges I experienced in China.
Wow, that's
Mm.
surprising to hear actually, which is
But
kind of a bummer.
yeah, well, I mean, having said that, though, I mean, that was also like a big China lesson as well when because like one of my wife's friends was I was like stuck with she would make me hang out with him, and he couldn't really speak any English, and I really couldn't speak any Chinese at all. But all I heard him saying was like nigga, 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 and stuff. I heard him saying that all the time. And I'm like, okay. And in my mind, I was like, okay, that's a bit weird. I know he doesn't. I know in his heart he doesn't mean any harm towards me or anything. So then that was a way that I figured. That was like I guess like my first Chinese lesson.
Yeah, how did that lesson go? Can you explain to the audience what he was actually trying to do and how did you navigate that?
like what sounds in Chinese well to our non-Chinese audience, what sounds in Chinese like individuals are saying like the N word and stuff like that. It's really a filler word, like how we in English say like or the way they use their filler words is like the N word. Do I have that? Is that like a good
Yep.
explanation of it? Yeah, yeah. So that was definitely like my first that was
Were
my
you
first lesson in Chinese.
were you taken aback? How did you approach that conversation with the friend?
Well, I mean, I couldn't have the conversation with him because he didn't know any English and I didn't know any Chinese. But I mean, but like I said, I knew he didn't mean any harm, and I mean, obviously, he did not want to fight me because I'm like 5 times bigger than him.
How long?
So I
How
just went
long?
with it, and he wound up like taking me on like a tour of like the old town Hangzhou and
Oh wow.
stuff like that. So I knew he didn't mean any harm or malice or anything.
How long did it take you to learn what naga meant in Chinese? Like
Well,
was it that first day or did you have to go back and talk to your wife about it?
yeah, yeah. When I saw her later on that night, I asked her, and she explained it to me.
Yeah, I feel like that like yes. I think naga I use a lot as like when I'm thinking, right? Because you're like that thing, it means that, right? So it's like that thing, and then you keep saying it, but then I'm always self-conscious when I'm in the States and I'm like, wow, this is gonna sound really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But at the end of the day, I mean, had a good time and stuff, and he's still like a cool dude and stuff, and
Are you still in contact?
practices. Yeah, yeah, he practices. If he has like an English related question or something like that, then he'll chat me on WeChat and stuff.
Good to know.
Uh,
Along the same lines, on the flip side, did you commit any cultural faux pas in hindsight?
Probably. Trying to think of like a cultural faux pas. Hmm.
Or was there anything where it was like there are customs in the US that you found were very different in China or vice versa?
Mm, no, no, not really. I guess the biggest difference that I was actually like surprised of is that for Shanghai being such a big city and stuff like that, um, almost every Chinese person I interacted with was like really patient with my incompetence of their culture or of the language and stuff. Where I can imagine like being like in Paris or New York, if I could imagine not speaking French or English, trying to ask someone for directions or something like that, then they would just tell me to tell me to tell me to in not so polite terms to get out of their face and stuff. Where I didn't experience any of that in China or in Shanghai as well.
That's good to
Nobody's
hear.
outright rude to me or anything like that.
So I guess something that stood out to me when I was in Shanghai visiting friends is the fact that on the subway, it's usually very crowded
Yeah.
and seats are at a premium. And I like to say I'm usually very good about being able to grab a seat, but in Shanghai, I was very surprised at the speed in which people ran into those seats. Did you experience that? And like, did you figure out the key to getting a seat?
That was good memories that you that you brought back to me that I almost forgot and stuff. But yeah, definitely. And I guess the key to getting a seat in Shanghai is to be on the lookout and of the people that appear to be getting ready to get up, and then position yourself to where you can quickly take advantage of that.
Did you, I'm assuming you used your size to an advantage there.
Yeah, yeah, but I would say I use like my size and like my rugby experience towards actually getting on and off the subways more so than actually sitting
Oh
down.
wow. But did you also get very good at reading people's like little nuances as they are shifting to get out of their seats?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
and that was an interesting aspect that you bring up in terms of the subway, because normally, I guess in like Western countries, there's like an unwritten rule where you let people off first, and then you get on. But at least at the time when I was in Shanghai, those rules did not apply. It was just every person for themselves, like almost like a scrum at times, getting on and off.
did you find that you had to, I guess, well, I'm small in size, so I feel like every time I'm in a crowd, I like to get on and off, I always have to make myself seem bigger so I have space to actually squeeze by. What was your way of trying to navigate the in and out rush of subways?
Well, I mean that's definitely one area where I would use my size to to my advantage. And like many people would just like a lot of times people would just like get out of my way and stuff because I guess they never seen like someone my size.
Um, okay. Yeah, so I also wanted to talk a little bit about, so we talked about how you moved without knowing anyone and it was kind of a trial in the beginning. How did you go about building your community while you were there?
Just being generally extroverted and stuff. I mean, I guess the easiest part is if I saw like another black person there, then that automatically like broke the ice because there was hardly any of us around. But then going from there, going to the American Chamber of Commerce events, I definitely did that. And then even the fellow English teachers that I had worked with when I first got there, they would kind of like show me the ropes and introduce me to their friends and stuff at times as well.
So it kind of spiraled from the people that you already know, and then they were you able to, by the end of your 3 years, have a community, or was it more one-off friends?
Uh, I would say a community, definitely because I was playing softball and stuff, and that was a community there, and then many of those guys own the own the bars and restaurants and stuff in the French Village area as well, and then yeah, and I would just say it just definitely spiraled
So you were
from there.
able to you were able to find your fellow expats and fellow Black
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, and even fellow like Chinese community as well. I wasn't that type of Laoway that would only hang out with foreigners and stuff. I mean, I'd hang out with anybody.
Cool. Is there a actually on that note, you just mentioned Lao Wai, right? Like foreigner
Yeah,
in
the
Chinese.
foreigner. Yep, yep.
Um, is there a Chinese phrase or saying that you think everyone should know who is visiting China?
Oh man.
Or can you say something in Chinese?
Uh, well, I guess if you're going, I get, well, but I guess showing my perspective and stuff like that. The words I learned to pick up pretty fast was Taguela
Okay.
and Ping Yi. And I guess
Tai
that's
Guai MPAE. Why did you
it.
choose? Well, can you tell the audience what those words mean and why
Uh,
did you specifically choose them?
Taguela means that's expensive, and Ping Yi was like, give me a discount. Because because a lot of times whenever I would go and buy something, 9 times out of 10 I was getting the quote unquote like lawway price, like the foreigner price, which is basically quite more expensive than the regular prices that they have, and so I learned right off the bat to just say those two phrases to get a more favorable price.
Were you able to, like, what do you think your success rate was using those two phrases at getting the hopefully local discount?
I still don't think I got the local discount. I mean, if I was by myself, I don't think I got the local prices at all. But the fact that I would say that, I think, surprised a lot of vendors and stuff like that, and just because I entertained them by saying that, I think they would give me a discount of some sort.
Were you successful most of the time, you'd say?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, in terms of getting a discount, but not necessarily the local price.
But I mean, you still, I think, yeah, I would say kudos to you for being able to get the price down. I know when I travel, I don't always get like the a discount at all.
They give you the foreigner prices too.
I don't know. I don't think I've shopped as much in China, but like I remember going to like Southeast Asia and experiencing the same thing because they would inevitably speak to me in their language, and then as soon as I speak, of course I don't speak their language. Um, because they would so like in Southeast Asia they would take a calculator and they would punch in the price. They wouldn't even say it, right? And then but then as soon as I wanted to ask questions, the price would go up. I was like, wait a second, you just gave me another price. So yeah, I always wanted to be able to communicate well enough to be like, no, give me that local price. I know that you just typed in.
Yeah, definitely. And then like
Um,
another price that I would throw in, I guess, if they were being like too stubborn on the price, I would physically like add stuff to whatever they were at the price that they were trying to give me. Like, for example, I remember my wife sent me to like the local market to get vegetables and stuff.
uh-huh.
And when they give me a price, and she'd always tell me like the local price. And so if they were being like stubborn, they'd be like, no, no, this is really the price. Then I would add like a couple of vegetables or something like that. And then I would say, Kaima, like will this work? and then they would laugh kind of like he just did. It's okay, sure, whatever.
So you would end up getting the price that your wife ultimately gave you the gold for.
I mean, not really, but I got more stuff for the price point that those people were trying to give me.
That's a good strategy, actually. I'm gonna have to try that next time. Um, well, so it looks like we're wrapping things up, but I'd like to end with a question.
Sure.
Um, what are three things you wish you knew before you moved to China?
There's things I wish I knew before I moved to China. I guess one would definitely be the language. I definitely wish I had a better understanding of the language. And then two, I guess I'd go with like the cultural nuances. Because I guess, for example, like here in the United States, like personal space is
Mm.
a our we feel is our natural given right to have our own personal space, but that's almost like non-existent in China or in Shanghai at least because of the huge population with the less square feet. So I guess I would go with that. And then I guess for the hmm, third one, I guess I would wish I had more understanding on how to get deals done in Shanghai and in China as well.
Deals
Or
done.
have
How
like a
so?
better knowledge. Well, let me rephrase it. Have a better knowledge of what the Guangxi is all about and developing the Guangxi rather
Which
than
it sounds like you were able to towards the end, or like as you progressed with all of the contacts that you made.
yeah, definitely so. But I wish I had I wish I had like prior knowledge of like a game plan before I landed
Mm.
in Shanghai that I could just execute it from day one, more so than month two and a half.
Hey, 2.5 months to get a knack for Guanxi is kudos to you. That is amazing, I think.
Thanks,
Well,
thanks.
yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks for coming and going, and
Yeah,
we'll
sure.
see you in part two.
Awesome. Sounds exciting. Can't wait.